This week I've been mostly plugging different stuff into my MacBook microphone port and seeing what effects that has on VCV Rack, sort of physical interfaces, if you will. This process was somewhat complicated because the MacBook microphone input is part of the headphone input, so I had to use this particular cable which came with my mobile phone, which has 4 rings on it, unlike a usual stereo jack that has 3. I cut the headphones and jack off this lead, and luckily this handy website showed me which wires within the jack I would need to connect to. Obviously I had to use a multimeter to find out where the wires went to on the jack. Then I plugged the whole thing in and opened up VCV Rack. Those 2 wires are connected to the ground and microphone wires of the headphone jack. My bodily electricity was enough to influence the oscillator within VCV Rack. Next I set up a drum machine and a sequencer and connected an LDR across the microphone and ground pins. Here it is, connected just to the Tremor input via an ADSR module. Then I connected the microphone input directly to the volts per octave input of one of the standard VCO modules. This is what that sounded like with the saw wave. Kind of interesting, kind of like an annoyed bee. This beckoning cat has been hanging around my studio for a long time. It's been broken multiple times, and now I decided to solder wires onto the coil that drives the beckoning motion. This is the circuit diagram. I had to use PNP and NPN transistors rather than connecting the coil directly to the microphone input. That's not actually to protect the microphone, it's because the beckoning motion actually stopped when the microphone started drawing more power from the coil. I do recommend though, before you try connecting stuff up to your microphone input on your computer, do check the output levels on an oscilloscope first. I didn't bother to do that, but that's because I'm just completely careless. You could fry your computer by just sticking anything onto the microphone port. My idea was to use the beckoning cat kind of like a metronome to trigger a sequencer. I had to use an ADSR module to filter the output from the cat slightly so that it was clean enough to provide a trigger for the sequencer. After playing around with this for a while, I realised that the thumping noise that triggers the drum is probably not actually the electronics within the cat producing the pulse. I think it's actually the magnet on the end of the cat's arm that's inducing a current in the coil as it moves. By the way, ignore that Arduino Mini on the board. I was messing around with it, triggering VCV Rack with Arduino outputs instead. But in this video I wanted to try some really primitive hack style stuff rather than trying to be too complicated programming and attaching Arduinos and stuff. Actually, I am working on an Arduino based synthesizer with a kind of hybrid digital analog core, so do check back for more information about that. Otherwise, I hope you found that video interesting. If you're interested in synthesizers, open source electronics, CNC machines and various other bits and bobs, please do subscribe to get notified when there's some more content on my channel. Hope you enjoyed that. Goodbye.